Matt, a vet who's just retiring and wants to get into his own business, from what you've experienced and what you've gone through, so you get your product, which is your Victory Serum. How do you take it to that next level to commercialize it?
It took me a year, because a year of research, development of product, testing of the product, and then because, again, we're not trying to half-ass it, I put myself, back into bad dandruff situation by cutting out and trying different levels, different amounts of chemical, different types of, research and development effectively and testing. And that's the difference. And if you're going to go into products, if you're going to come out and you're going to go and join a business, you've got to find something that you're really passionate about, because there's opportunity out there. You can do drop shipping of products. You can, pick something that's already developed in China and you sell it for a markup. And, sometimes that can just be a competition to the bottom, competing against Amazon, right? But when you go into e-com, it all looks like it's going to be easy. It ain't easy. It's full tilt. I'm working 9 to 6 in my normal job, but to do the amount of effort that it takes to get to, to the launch, I was up at, 4:45 in the morning and getting to bed, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I'd stop for breakfast, stop for exercise, stop for work, and then, stop for dinner and the kids at night, and then back in again type thing. And that's the level of commitment. If you're going to go from, bootstrap it yourself, grassroots, into a product that you're going to manufacture, research, and present to the market, that's the level of commitment. And if you're coming out of the Defence Force and, you've really got to, I think, embrace the discipline that you had. And I've had it, and everyone who's been in the Defence Force is disciplined in, and it just carries, it's just beaten into you over years, right? And being self-motivated and, punctual and honest and self-assessment, did you do a shit job or not type thing. And you've got to use that skill set. And I think coming out of the Defence Force and going into e-com is probably an ideal move for someone, transitioning. But don't think it's going to be an easy pathway. It's going to take as much or more than what you put in. Because at the end of the day, that you don't report to anyone else, you report to you, right? You bankroll this. So you're stumping up the cash to do this. And I think, depending on what you're getting into, 50 grand is a pretty normal outlay, I think. And that's where I'm at, really. To go from that zero to launch, it's about a 50 grand commitment. And not a dime of that goes to your time. You're not paid. It's all cash out, right? It's all going out for product, testing, training, education, setting up companies, accounting. All of those expenses come along for the ride. So as long as you go into it eyes wide open, and this is your future career for the next 3 to 5 years, and you're going to spend 50 grand to get to the front door, right, before you've even sold the product potentially, especially if you're ordering and you've got minimum quantities overseas. If you're going to order from overseas, all my stuff's in Australia, so I don't have that overseas stuff. But if you're, and that higher price points come with that, right? So overseas products are going to be cheaper, but shipping is more expensive. Delays are a real, impact on your business. You don't have as much control over delivery times and communication and setup. But if you're going to set up and you're going to go into e-com, pick something that you're passionate about. Because if you spend 50 grand,
it's hard
you're
work.
6 to 12 months into it and you're not passionate about it, you've just blown 50 grand.
Yeah, you're on the wrong path.
Yeah, just go buy some shares.
Yeah. But things like, I see your packaging and your imaging on your website, and it's just fantastic. You look at it and it looks so professional. How do you go about that if you coming from a military background? And is there support services out there, or do you just something you have to research and do yourself, or how do you get to that level?
It's there's all different operators out there, to that'll take you, through to the your ecom journey. I ended up using a company called, Ecom Capital, and there's a commitment outlay, to do that, and that really helped me launch. It got me to that. I would say it got me to 50% of my first year, right, in that research and development. So my website was being built. I had guidance on trying to find product, and that that included the silk pajamas element, right? So and that's the thing about when you're going into ecom. And I mentioned this when we set up at that conference there, Steve, a few months ago. If you're going down the path and you've picked a product and you think it's good, and then you get that sort of niggle in the back of your mind, you're going, oh, I'm not sure I can do this for the next 3 or 4 years. You've got to dump and run now, right? Because if you can't commit long term, you're just going to burn money, you're going to lose energy, and it's going to be a fizzer, right? Yeah. But so back to your question there, John, it was really important, I think, to have the support to get started. And whether it's company we used or any other company, do your research, find out how people are reviewing the company and their experience. But you have to stand on your own 2 feet. Otherwise, you are going to be forking out fist wads of cash for more specialists to do more website design, more creatives doing ads, running email campaigns, Klaviyo, Canva, AI. I have become, a specialist in about, 50 different new skills I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, I think we've all been through that.
It's a phenomenal learning curve, And this is even before I even got to launch point, where I was dealing with an ad manager, right? Ad manager is another level again. About understanding when you're spending money on dollars to promote an ad and it doesn't work, that's just burning, you're just setting money alight. Right? You've got to be a quick study, a super quick study.
Because John sells beanies and bespoke beanies and socks through his e-commerce brand, Scott and Parker. How long has it taken you, John? Because I'm interested to know, Matt and I have been on this journey, over the last 6 months, 12 months. How long was it for you to launch yours, just so that we can share that with the audience?
Well, I think I've just been going about 8 months.
Well, 8 months, yeah.
Yeah. So
we're all sort of in the same, startup phase, aren't we, really? So,
but I've done it probably a bit differently. So I haven't paid for all that support. So I've just gone at it myself and said, well, I need to do this and I need to learn how to do it, and I'll just do it. And I think Matt and I have a lot of discussion around this. I think it's from the military, because if you got your back to the wall, you can't just stand there and worry about your next move is going to be right or wrong. You have to do something, so you do it. And that energy and that momentum sort of gets you going. And sometimes it might not be 100% right, but the fact that you're going forward will lead to the next thing.
That's what I'm a strong believer. Lessons, really, aren't you, John? Yeah. You learn and you just build, and you it's an absolute learning from your mistakes. Yeah, is one of the biggest takeaways that you're going to get out of ecom, because you're going to make a shit ton of mistakes.
And we've made lots of mistakes already, and it's cost us money. But you have to, as you say, be on top of the figures and be looking all the time and know when to pull the plug on that. Say, well, try that, not working, let's try the next thing. And these guys will come sell you the world, because you speak to them and, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but they never deliver. And you're the guy forking the money. So I think it's getting to grips with that and saying, is that working? Is it not working? When do I pull the plug, or when? And a lot of the stuff you actually have to really understand the detail yourself. So it's like setting up a website. And so I've set up my whole website myself. I've done everything myself. And then I went out and got an agency to do some stuff. And they actually caused a lot of problems. I had to then go back and undo all what they did and restructure it again myself. And that, as you said, Matt, is you have to stand on your own feet.
Yeah.
And take responsibility and do it yourself. You can't think that just because you're paying this expert that he's going to know what he's doing. Some of these companies, what they do is
invested up until the fee runs out.
Yeah. Well, and all they're doing is they're charging you and then outsourcing it to Philippines or India or somewhere else, and trying to do as little as possible for the maximum fee they can charge you.
Yeah.
And which is good business for them. It's a good business model. But as a little entrepreneur where you've got limited budget, you have to be on top of that and be aware of that and understand that just because they profess to be an expert, they're not always the expert.
I think that's also one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, is because we want veterans out there to know that there is a community of us that are all in the same boat. You know, we have the same values, the same work ethic, and we are all doing, you know, there's a lot of us doing these e-commerce or other small business sort of things, that we're a community that we should band together and obviously provide each other support. So that's one of the great things I've found, is networking with the different people, because it's funny, in e-commerce itself, it's actually quite a lonely sort of little existence, because you're beavering away all the time. You're trying to get all these things done, and the fact is that you sometimes lose touch with, you know, the everything else that's going on, and you feel lonely. So I love the fact that I've met you, John. I've met you, Matt. You know, we want to meet more people through this podcast, through this community, build some kind of, you know, support network for each other, because we're out here to help each other as well. We're out here to be, you know, in each other's lives, to support each other, and, you know, also celebrate some of our successes. Like, I'm so proud of everything you've done, you know, Matt, you know, taking Victory Serums, you know, in this short, you know, space of time, and you're killing it, you know. Like, I believe in your product. I love what you're doing. You know, I spoke to you yesterday on the phone. I'm signing up. I want to get involved. I want to do a gut health check, you know. So I think what you're doing is fantastic. So, and, you know, this forum, you know, John's forum of, you know, the historic military interviews, taking us three together now, you know, that's now three people that are going to be able to join together and, you know, get some stuff done. It's fantastic.
Well, that's the important thing about, you know, the Defence Force, is that you have that mateship over the years that you serve. And, you know, it's going to vary depending on the nature of your service. Some of it's going to be really chaotic. Other, you know, it may not be, right? But it does form a bond with certain types of individuals, right? And when you step away from the Defence Force, everyone sort of goes their own ways, because you leave at different times and everyone goes on their own different journeys, but you've always got that connection, and whether it's through basics or through, you know, active service, or in my situation was, you know, the long-term friends that I had was that apprenticeship bond.
Yes.
Because we were apprentices at war, right, with everybody in the Air Force that fucking hated us, right, for 3 years. And that creates a bond just in itself. So some of my longest-term friends are from the day that I joined. You know, that's really quite unique, I guess, in the apprentice element side of things. But when you leave the Defence Force, you sort of set adrift, and you end up in the commercial world, and you might go into, you know, any type of industry you're going to go in, and you're going to struggle, because the thinking and the mentality and expectations are just so different from the defence. When you work in the Defence Force and you've had that training, you're one of the best employees out there, right? Because you're going to turn up. You're going to turn up on time or early, right? And you're going to do what's required.
Yeah.
That's how we're built.
So what's interesting, Matt, I've interviewed veterans from the Second World War, from Vietnam, now Steve from Iraq. And it doesn't matter which conflict, or if you've been in the military, you have the same understanding because you went through the same. You went through basic training, you went through the next level of training. You may have been in a conflict or not been in a conflict, but the same, you can immediately relate. When I reached out to Steve, when I saw him on TikTok, we immediately could talk to each other because we had the same grounding of what we've been through.
You'll even find you've got the same sense of humor. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, and if there's one thing you've got to be really good at in e-commerce is you've got to have a thick skin, right? Because people that are going to make comments about you, your product, your business, your idea, and especially family or close friends, they are going to shoot you down like motherfuckers, right? There's nobody that's going to be supporting you in the early days until you've got some runs on the board, sort of thing, right? And that's something unique around the defense people is a like grit, right? And the ability to take flack, verbal flack from your mates. Like I think it was a barrage, and even to this day, someone will get on the phone and go, hey, fuckface, or call up and instead of saying, oh, g'day, Matt, say, g'day, idiot. And that's how we greet each other, right? And that's that love and that support and that network. And you try and explain that to someone working in an office in a desk next to you, and if you said that, you'd be in front of HR and gone by lunchtime.
Is there any advice that you could give to other veterans? One about listening to what we're doing and I guess this experience. So first point is tell us about this experience, so that we can try and invite other future business owners and vets in here. But also any advice just for them that are out there listening.
Yeah, I think the takeaway is that you've got to find, because when you leave the Defence Force, you can, like I said before, you can be set adrift, right? So find what you're going to do next and sort of commit to it. And if e-com is going to be your gig and that's what you want to do, commit to it, and have that long-term commitment, like 3 years minimum. And, spend the time finding the right product, the right service, whatever it is you're going to do. And the longer you can spend in those early days and really sort of narrow down exactly, what it is you're going to do or sell or provide, that's going to be worth gold. And you'll be able to, you're going to get more energy out of it. You're going to be able to go longer and work harder than anyone else.
Sorry, John. I had a failure with the camera. Some of this is just going on Spotify, so they can't see that.
That's gold.
Well, we're all learning. This is the thing. Like, me and my brand, Vortrekker Australia, I've been on socials and doing this for.
I love what you're doing too. I reckon it's fantastic. That real raw. Oh, fuck it, let's just go and see what we can do, sort of thing.
But I'm still learning. Get a new camera stand today, trying to make it look professional, and halfway through it dies with its battery. But that's just that someone will think that's funny, so that's good.
I think it's funny. I know exactly what and that's the thing when you go on that e-com journey, and it's not just, and especially if you're going to be camera facing. Right. Yeah. If you've got a product that you don't need to be camera facing, you're just going to sell a product or whatever. That's not a big issue, right? But if you're camera facing, you got to get used to that, and you've got to have a little bit of spend to get the right gear, so you don't look like an amateur. Because if you don't have the right gear and you turn up and you've just got like a $60 webcam, and you're presenting your business to the world, it's not gonna fly, So there is an investment, and it's not just about investment in product or research and development. It's investment in your gear that you need to be able to present your company.
No, I was just going to say the important thing too is just to get going, because if you don't get going and you worry, look like this or look like that, and your learning curve is so steep, you actually can't take it all in immediately. So when we started doing podcasts, we started podcasts in COVID, and our first podcast, I look back now and I just I'm totally embarrassed. But at the time, I thought they were quite good. And then I got some comments back. Some people said, oh, this isn't maybe that good. But it's, you learn, and then you start to learn about sound and your green screen and your quality of your video. And so it all comes with practice. I think that's an important thing, is don't wait to be perfect. Just go, because you're never going to be able to learn it all in one go.
That's a pretty good point. The learning curve is steep. It really is steep, and like you got to get to the point where you're comfortable with the product, and you can talk about it, and you can at least sell something that people are going to like. Right? That's the bare minimum. But having a website or a shop front or word of mouth or whatever way you're going to do it, just get out there and do it, and then refine as you go. But the thing is just having that, and even the first product, the first prototype. I know you've probably gone through that yourself, Steve. But my first couple of batches in the serums and the shampoos, I was a bit critical. I went, no, I didn't like that. I want that, and that they listen, and you evolve, right?
Yeah.
And you get better. And tell us about Steve. You had this. You've gone through prototypes with your bag.
Yeah. No, it's exactly. I've gone through 4 prototypes now, and you just keep trying and trying to get it better. And every day I love John, meeting John and having him in my ear. We're actually talking, fairly regularly, and it's another person in the trenches with me, and his advice, that advice he just gave, which is just have a crack. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just try, and it's pushed me, and I'm loving that. I just love the encouragement in the community. I mean, would you recommend other veterans that are thinking about, what they're doing, recommend them to come on our show?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to support each other. I mean, it's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood in the Defence Force, right? So, and the thing is that, when push comes to shove, the people that you serve within the Defence were going to be there no matter what, right? And that's, I think, building that sort of community, and I think that's what's really special about what you're doing here with, John and yourself, and inviting me on. I'm really privileged and thankful to have the opportunity, to come up and be
first
in the
guest,
same room.
mate. First guest.
First guest, yeah, exactly. I was, Johnny on the spot.
Yeah, no pressure. We're dropping cameras. It's it's all real. It's all raw.
It's all raw. That's okay. And it's and the thing is that if we can support each other, and we can promote each other's businesses and be honest, right? Because there's critical honesty, right? Which is what we need. And then there's just, being an arsehole, and friends and family can be that arsehole, right? And they give you negative feedback or no feedback at all. And that's one thing that I've learned. And I've had that chat with you, Steve, and different things that I was going to do. I just sent it out to you and go, what do you think about this? And fantastic, just come back with, got on the phone, let's have a chat for half an hour. What was you thinking? And it just reframed what I was going to do and just set me back on another path. And it's that support that you're not going to get in all the e-com providers, that are either they're consultants or businesses. That they may not give you that level of support, because they don't want to lose you as a customer.
Sometimes don't as well, because they don't quite understand it, so that's why I think it's important for us to build this, community of people that are in business together, because I think we do understand it that little bit more. I mean, I'm only a rookie, I'm only learning things, but you try and help the best you can. So that's what I think is great. But no, thank you so much, Matt, for coming on our show. And it's been such an eye-opener about your product at Victory Serums, but also, just great to talk to you and hear about your journey. We've got more to chat about after this, by the way. So we've lived a very similar life in certain respects. So, so great to have you on the show.